Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we've got our top first game for the NBA season. We have two games on the slate, Philadelphia and Boston, the LA Lakers and Golden State. We have four good teams to use. We got a lot of value plays, a lot of good options across the board here. I think we can make some really solid lineups on this particular slate, to be honest. And with that said, before I get started, can you guys like, comment, and subscribe? Smash that subscribe button, really helps out the channel. Also like this video, that also helps out quite a bit. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get into it. So in the point guard position, this is the most promising position on the particular slate. The most value, the most players available that are good options today. Really, point guard and shooting guard really look good. And there's a little bit less from the small forward, power forward, and center positions. But overall, let's go and get into the players themselves. So we're going to start with Steph Curry here. His price is a little bit down for his potential production. He does seem fairly priced based on what he'll likely do in this particular game. I don't really love him against the Lakers. He's never been quite as good against the Lakers as he's good against other teams. This game is at home, though, and he will be coming out swinging. Something he does is, shoot a lot of threes. So I do expect him to have a good game here. He has triple-double potential, obviously, every time he steps on the floor. And I think he's a really good spot. A really good price point for his production on this particular game. I don't think he's really a value play. I think he's fairly priced for this game. Now, then we're going to look at James Harden, who against Boston last season he played one game and scored 51 fantasy points. He's just too cheap here. I mean, that's just all there is to it. Now, the only real issue with him is that, so there's one thing. He's going to be more expensive for most of the season. You're going to see him be in the 11,000 price range for most of the year. So getting him at this discount is pretty nice at this point in the season. However, there is a little bit of risk here because Boston is a really good defensive team typically, and if he doesn't get to the line a bunch, it could crimp his production a little bit. Not only that, but they got a few good mouths to feed here in Philly. So he is a top option, but I still think you have to temper your expectations a little bit. Not necessarily expecting him to go for 60 fantasy points in this one, but still a good hefty 50 fantasy point game. Over 5x is definitely in his future. Then we're going to look at Russell Westbrook. Now, he is in the enigma spot. I do not know how to roster him today. I want to because of his price. He's just too cheap for his potential production. But as you know, last season he was all over the place. Having 30 fantasy point games, 25 fantasy point games at some points in the season. Now, him coming off the bench actually gives him more opportunity to score fantasy points, because when LeBron's on the floor, he tends to play off the ball more. And so him coming off the bench, he'll likely come in and take over where LeBron won't be on the ball. He will be in the game some with Westbrook, but less. Like, basically, you'll never have a single minute where Westbrook isn't in the game or where one of those two guys are not in the game. And so it's just a matter of, what is he going to do in those minutes and how many minutes that's going to be. And this first game, I feel like it's probably a little bit risky to utilize him, but I still think he's a good value play if you think he can have a big 45-point game. But last season in this first game against the Warriors, he didn't do very well. Didn't have a big game at all. I had 18 fantasy points. So just he's a little bit risky here, and obviously Laker fans are kind of all over the place with him. But if he can get into that role where he comes off the bench as the first guy and, runs things when LeBron's off the floor, he has some really good potential here. Then Tyrese Maxey, he is too cheap for his production in this particular matchup. At $5,000, I thought he was going to be around 6,500 or so. So at this 5,000 price point, he is a must-play. I don't think he even ever got this cheap last season, except at the very beginning. And nobody knew if he was going to be that good last season either. He does have a little bit of issue because it's against Boston, but overall his price is just too cheap. He's literally my top play at this position. Then we're going to look at Malcolm Brogdon. Now he is interesting spot here because in his old team he definitely had more opportunity to score a lot of fantasy points. I don't know what kind of minutes he's going to get here in Boston. I still think he's going to get enough, but it is still a little bit of risk here because him and Marcus Smart are basically sharing time, but he is a safer option compared to Marcus Smart. He's not my favorite play, but his price point's really good for his potential production. And then finally, Let's see here. None for the Lakers. So it looks like he might be starting, and he is minimum priced, and he's going to have the opportunity, even if he plays like 25 minutes, he had to be able to get 15 fantasy points. I just don't see much evidence as to why he would not be able to succeed in this particular matchup. But you do want to make sure that he is starting in this matchup. So overall, he's a great value play if he does end up starting, and obviously, he's going to have opportunity in this one. At shooting guard, now James Harden, I already mentioned. Klay Thompson, he's in a great spot here. His price seems too cheap for his potential production here. You can see in 3 games against the Lakers last season, he scored 40 fantasy points almost in each combined in those 3 games, average, I should say. And I do think his production upside here is really good. His price does seem like it's going to come up more as the season progresses, but he's not quite as cheap as I kind of thought he would be. But he's still a good value play, and I think he's in a great spot where he has 40-point upside in this matchup. And then Lonnie Walker for the Lakers. Now, it looks like he's going to be starting probably at small forward position, and he has a lot of upside in this matchup. His price isn't as cheap as I expected it to be, I guess, but I still think he has upside here. The real risk with him is that he sometimes can be kind of inconsistent, and it really has to see how the minutes play out for this particular matchup. But he does have some upside as a scorer in this one. And I already mentioned Brogdon and Kendrick Nunn, both who can play this position as well. Then we're going to get the small forwards. So LeBron James is just underpriced, quite frankly. I don't love playing LeBron James on DraftKings because of his inconsistencies at times, and he's usually priced way too high. But in this particular situation, you're not ever going to get LeBron James under $10,000 except at the very beginning of this season. And so I do like him in this matchup. Just make sure he's playing because he's probable or questionable or whatever. I mean, he's going to be probable and questionable every single game. So get him when he's cheap right here at the beginning because you're never going to get that price point again. Tobias Harris looks like he's in a really good spot here. He seems underpriced for his potential production. Obviously, he's going to be in the 7,000 range for most of the season, 6,500 to 7,000, typically where he stays. And he does have a lot of potential in this matchup. I am surprised that he's this cheap. I understand that Philadelphia has a tough matchup here against Boston, and they have some mouths to feed in this one. But I still think he is a little too cheap for his production here, and he's one of my favorite plays at the small forward position. You can also throw Lonnie Walker here at small forward as well. And the power forward position, obviously I mentioned LeBron James. He's a top option. And we're going to look at Draymond Green. Now, this is another enigma play. Draymond Green is a walking triple-double at times, but he also could get thrown out of this game because he is playing against LeBron. But he does like to show off in these type of games, but he does have some risk because of fouls and stuff like that. And he does turn the ball over some too, which definitely hurts him a little bit. But he is cheap over here on DraftKings, and as you can see, last season he really wasn't ever this cheap. He did fall into the 6,500 range, late in the season. But I expect him to fly up in the price in the 7,000 range for most of the year. But he's going to have to get assists and rebounds really to pay off here. But he's definitely capable. He does have tendency to get random triple doubles here and there, and sometimes double doubles with points and rebounds, which are actually more beneficial on DraftKings than just getting pure points, so to speak. So I do love him in this matchup. Then we're going to look at Al Horford, who is absolutely the best play at the power forward / center position on DraftKings, for the matter of the fact that he's probably going to be starting. Make sure he is starting. But Robert Williams is out, and with him out, Horford is just flat out way too cheap. When this, last season, he ended up being in the 7,000 range at some times during the season. He's actually too cheap even if he was coming off the bench, kind of. But he definitely has a lot of production potential in this matchup. He's my favorite play on DraftKings overall because of the matchup and because of the potential for the fact that Robert Williams is out. Just make sure he's playing and you'll be fine there. Then we're going to also mention Tobias Harris again, who can also be put at the power forward position. I already mentioned him. So then at the center position, obviously Draymond Green and Al Horford are both available at this position. But the top overall pick is Joel Embiid. He is the top overall pick on this entire slate. His price is actually underpriced for what his potential production will be. He will be over $12,000 for a lot of the season. Get him while he's under 10,000, which is absolutely crazy. I just expect him to have a really good game here. He looks like he's a man on a mission, and we expect him to have a great game here. It's really easy to roster him in with all the value on the slate as well. So with that said, thank you guys for liking, commenting, subscribing. If there's any players you think I've left out, feel free to leave those in the comments below. Have a nice day, guys.